From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Get the bell notification. I said that right, didn't I? But when we drop that fire content, and today, Hump Day, we're back with another edition of the Overtime Podcast. Feeling good. It looks good outside here in the city of New Orleans, but wherever you're watching us, whether that's the Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network or on YouTube, or you listen to us on audio, thank you for being here with us. Big development out there at Saints camp for your New Orleans Saints as QB1. Number 4, Derek Carr was out there at practice. That's where we're going to go with the big picture. But first and foremost, Andre, how you feeling on this Wednesday?
You know, I'm feeling pretty good because looking around the sports world, you know, it's very busy. You got NBA, you got World Series, and although my Yankees are not doing very well in the World Series, my Pelicans not doing very well right now in the NBA world, the Saints, there's finally a little bit of optimism around the New Orleans Saints.
I mean, in a season full of misery, or at least the last 6 weeks of misery, I mean, you take anything you can get, and that's it. Why are they optimistic, or why they at least have a little bit of glimmer of hope? That's just because Derek Carr is back at practice today, and I mean, you get your starting quarterback back. He hasn't been around for a long time. He got hurt against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been out ever since. Haven't really seen him much because he hasn't been on the practice field, not even just kind of walking around doing a lot of rehab. So he's back. And anytime you get your starting quarterback back, there is a little bit of an injection of life into just sort of the organization and just the feel around everything. And my goodness, do the Saints need it at 2-6? So that's where we're going to go with the big picture today.
Absolutely. Derek Carr, Saints quarterback, back at practice today. He talked to the media for the first time in weeks today for a long time, too. He talked for about 22 minutes. I think that's the longest of any press conference this season. But the question that we're tackling today, Saints 2-6. Derek Carr expected to be on the field Sunday against Carolina, but can his return spark a run for the Saints?
Can Derek Carr truly spark the Saints to go on a run? Let me definitively say, I don't know. I absolutely do not know. First off, what constitutes a run? 2 in a row, 3 in a row,
they're gonna need
4
more
in
than
a
2
row,
in a row. That's
5 out of 6, 6 out of 7. So whatever definition of a run you have, if you're watching us, listening to us, just keep that in your mind as you listen to this podcast today. What I do know is Carr was back today. He looked incredibly energetic. You could just tell the way he was running. He was just very, very excited to be back on the field with his guys, very happy. And why not? I mean, the dude hasn't played in a long time. This is a guy that doesn't miss games, and he's been basically out of sight, out of mind for 3 weeks. Quick side note, some of y'all tweeting at me when I tweeted out the video of him doing his stretching and all the stuff we were able to shoot, and basically saying, why does he look so happy? We're 2-6 right now. Y'all just find any freaking reason to hate on this dude. What are y'all doing? He's happy to be back. He hadn't played in a long time. He's happy to be back. What do you want to be moping around with the frown on his face with no energy? I'm just going to say it. That faction of the fan base really sucks sometimes. They really do suck sometimes. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Can Carr spark a run? First off, let's just assume he's close to 100%, because I don't think he would be back if he wasn't. In fact, I even asked him today, I said, were you close last week? He said, well, if you ask me, I was close, but no, if you ask the coaches. He said last week, towards the end of the week, very late in the week, he felt confident to do some stuff that he was doing this week, which means throwing again, basically. So he hadn't been able to throw for a long time. So this would be the quote-unquote rust game, the rusty game. And hey, look, sometimes you catch a break, and the Saints need as many breaks as they can possibly catch. So to have the rust game against the Carolina Panthers, that's the perfect opponent to have your rusty game. But let's also not pretend that Derek Carr is the perfect answer to this hole the Saints are in. They will need much more than just number 4. They will need much more than him. But let's also be real about who Derek Carr is. While imperfect and frustrating at times, he is also competent. And if you're going to go on a run, Carr at quarterback is the absolute only path to get there, which is what they want. I mean, ultimately, it's what they want. They got to stack a few together, more than a few, probably a lot. No one else can do it. Not Rattler, not Haener. We know this because you may not realize it. Having some level of competency leads to a level of confidence that they're not going to admit they lost, but they haven't had in 3 weeks. And to have that at the game's most important position has a cumulative effect. It offers the entire organization, front office, coaching staff, offense, defense, special teams, some level of stability that they haven't had in a few weeks. And that's where I would place Carr. Not elite, not even great, but competent. Give me that, guys. Come on, give me that at least. He gives them a chance to be in every game. What would their record have been the last 3 weeks with Derek Carr? I'm thinking probably at best 4-4, but at least snag one out of those last three, and at worst they're 3-5. He gives them a chance to be in every game, something they simply have not been since he exited October 7th against the Kansas City Chiefs on that Monday night game in the fourth quarter on that throw to Mason Tipton. They have to stay, the Saints I'm talking about, they have to stay one game at a time. No team on a 6-game losing streak at 2-6 ever has the luxury of overlooking anyone, regardless of how bad the Carolina Panthers are and regardless of how bad they beat them back in week 1. Dennis Allen made that very, very, very clear today when he said 0 about he was asked, well, how much does it factor in the way you beat them in week 1? He said 0 impact. And I agree. But we can look at the big picture. It's what we do.
Yep.
They have 9 games ahead of them. Let's just say, for the sake of this experiment, Carr is available for all 9 of them. At Carolina, home against Atlanta, home Cleveland, bye, LA Rams at home, at the Giants, home Washington, at Green Bay, home Raiders, at Tampa Bay. Is that correct? Did I have that all right?
Yeah.
All right. Can Carr lead them to 6 wins? Can he lead them to 7 wins? I think it's very possible. I could talk myself into a Saints victory in a lot of those games. I mean, because it's any given Sunday, and they play very well the first 2 weeks of the season. If any similar to that, the rest of the way, you absolutely have a chance to win every single one of those games. But you can also lose every one of those games as well. We know that. It's very possible, though, they can turn a corner with Carr and win some games, but they've already dug themselves a deep enough hole at 2-6. So let's just say they go 6-3 down the stretch.
That's good.
It's great. But is 8-9 getting you into the playoffs? Which is when I'm talking about going on a run, I mean go on a run and get into the postseason. I'm not talking about going on a run just to pat ourselves on the back here. 7-2 is 9-8 getting you in? It didn't last year. It didn't in 2021, the last year of you-know-who as head coach. So a long way of saying I think it's very possible the Saints can and will have success with Carr back and even go on a run. But even if they do, the hole just may be too much to overcome, which would put them right back in the position they were after last season. Optimism about finishing strong, but ultimately coming up short again. So hope y'all followed all of that. But I think they're going to have success with Carr, but I don't know if it's going to be enough success to offset the hole they're already in.
You know, the question, can Derek Carr save the Saints? Derek Carr actually went out of his way today to say he is no savior.
No savior.
But the Saints are going to need him to put on his cape and be a hero in these last 9 games of the season if they have any hope of salvaging this season. And to look at the next 9, I want to look at the first 5 that Derek Carr started. 2-3 in those starts. And I know woulda, coulda, shoulda, but that's what fans do. We woulda, coulda, shoulda all day, all night. In those 5 starts, the Saints could have easily been 4-1.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reason that they were 2-3, I put more on the shoulders of the defense than I do Derek Carr's shoulders. We know what happened. They blew out Carolina. They blew out the Cowboys. Week 3 against Philly. Derek Carr leads the team down the field late in the fourth quarter. Touchdown to Chris Olave in the corner of the end zone. The defense is the one who gives up the big play to Dallas Goedert and the touchdown to Saquon Barkley to lose that game in week 3. Derek Carr in week 4 against Atlanta, once again, the Saints up late, 30 seconds on the clock. Did Atlanta even have a timeout? And all of a sudden, Paulson Adebo, pass interference, Younghoe Koo, the longest field goal of his career, somehow, some way, the Saints leave Atlanta win a loss, despite the offense doing what they need to do. Situational football. Why are the Chiefs undefeated right now?
That's it.
It's not because they're the top team in football offensively. It's not because Patrick Mahomes is lighting the world on fire. They've been great at situational football. And offensively, in week 3 and week 4, where the Saints lost, Derek Carr and that offense played great situational football. It was the defense that let him down. Now, week 5 against Kansas City, he got hurt mid-game. I don't think they win that game even if he finishes.
That was not a good game for him, yes.
It wasn't. So you could easily say that they could have been 4-1 over that stretch. So that's the first 5. Now let's look at the last 3, the 3 games that the Saints lost. And you look at the deficiencies and the weaknesses of Spencer Rattler and that offense. A lot of those are fixed with the return of Derek Carr. What was one of Rattler's biggest weakness? The blitz. He struggled against the blitz. Teams blitzed him. We saw Tampa do it. Denver did it. The Chargers pressured him. You know who I mentioned it on Monday. The highest rate, the quarterback blitzed at the highest rate in the NFL. Derek Carr. 40.4% of his dropbacks, Derek Carr is blitzed. That is the highest in the NFL. Despite that, he still completes 70% of his passes. That's
He's
5th in the NFL.
Yeah.
You look at his completion percentage under pressure, 60%. Also 5th in the entire NFL. Derek Carr has been blitzed more than any quarterback in the league, but he has shined in those situations more often than not. What was another weakness of this offense? Falling behind early. We watched him fall behind early to Tampa Bay. We saw him fall behind early to Denver. And we talked about that all throughout the last few weeks. They never trailed against Carolina. They never trailed against Dallas when Carr was starting. They didn't trail against Philly until the 4th quarter. And against Atlanta, they trailed early in the first because of Shaheed's, the punt return that led to a touchdown, but the Saints scored right after that. That was never not a one-possession game.
Right.
That game was never in a situation where the Saints were down big and you had to take the running game out, because that's really the strength of this offense, is being able to run the ball. They weren't able to do that against Denver and Tampa because they fell behind so early. That wasn't the case when Derek Carr was quarterback, because you were in every single one of those games. Which takes me to another thing, the run game. First 4 games of the season, they averaged 148 yards per game on the ground. Last 4 games of the season, 85 yards a game on the ground. That Clint Kubiak offense looks real good when you can run the ball.
That's it.
When you cannot, partially because you're out of games so early, it looks pretty bad, and that's been the issue. And the last thing is health. We saw the Saints struggle to keep people on the field, whether it was Chris Olave going down with a concussion. We saw all the different pieces of the offensive line being shuffled around. Taysom Hill got hurt in the Atlanta game. Well, now Carr's coming back. Taysom Hill's here. Chris Olave's here. Cesar Ruiz is back. Lucas Patrick will be playing. Shane Lemieux is designated to return off of a IR. So a lot of the health issues that the team faced while Derek Carr was gone, outside of Eric McCoy, a lot of those guys on offense are back. So I feel like the Saints are in a good position to capitalize on the return of Derek Carr. And on top of that, right team, right time.
Yeah.
If there was any team to return against when you're on a 6-game losing streak, it's against the worst team in the NFL, led by the worst quarterback in the NFL, Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers.
Who is getting the start on Sunday for the 2nd straight week, despite Andy Dalton being a full participant at practice. 2 things I want to add. It's a comment/question. What do you think? Carr plays the last 3 weeks that they got just the brakes beat off of him the last 3 weeks. What do you think the Saints' record is right now?
I think they may have struggled to beat Tampa because Tampa was healthy back then and they had a lot of defensive issues against Tampa. But I do think they beat the Broncos. And I think they beat the Chargers. So I think the Saints go 2-1 in that stretch.
So they would have been 4-4. I'm going to say either 3-5 or 4-4.
Yeah.
I don't think they win all 3, but I think they're at least 3-5 looks so much better than 2-6. If you just look at it on the sheet, it just looks so much better
even
than
4-4.
4-4 looks fantastic right now. But that's neither here nor there. The other question. Here is the big unknown. Okay, because I think they're going to be able to run the football. I hope they ran the ball pretty effectively if you look at the numbers last week.
They did.
Didn't feel that way because they kept kind of shooting themselves in the foot, but they ran the ball pretty effectively. My question is the one receiver Carr had undeniable chemistry with was Rashid Shaheed.
Yes.
So who emerges as Rashid Shaheed? The guy on the surface that feels like he can fill that role is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He didn't play last week. Maybe he's ready for this week, and maybe he's their guy. But there's a chemistry you got to work out with stuff like that. That's not always a given with a new receiver and quarterback. A quarterback's been hurt. He's just trying to get back to. He said, "I couldn't throw for 3 weeks." Not only now does he have to throw, get that back, which he says he's got back. Now he's got to kind of recalibrate the chemistry with the guys he's already got a lot of stuff with, but also a new guy in Valdez-Scantling. So that's the big unknowns with Carr that could derail any form of true run or positivity with having Carr back. But you gotta play the hand you're dealt. I mean, they still got Olave, they still got Juwan, they got Taysom, and the key to it all, you got to be able to run the football.
Yes.
Run the football early and set the tone running the football. It felt last week while they ran the ball well, it never really took over. Where you go back to week 1 and week 2, that run game took over the game, and you could just tell how much better Clint Kubiak is as an offensive coordinator when he has that run game. And when he doesn't, I think that's a major weakness in his ability as an offensive coordinator. You can't be that hamstrung when you are getting a good run defense against your run game. But that's a different topic for a different day. But I am, first off, I'm optimistic about this game. I think they can very easily get to 3-6. I don't want to say easy because it's NFL, but they're a 7.5 point road favorite in the NFL. Is that even, when was the last time that even happened? They're 2-6 and they're a 7.5 point road favorite. That's unbelievable. That's just goes to show you just how pathetic Carolina is right now. So
it says a lot about Carolina, and because again, if Andy Dalton plays this game, Andy Dalton was up and down. They got trashed by Washington.
Yeah, he's a little bit up and down.
Yeah, we saw them play bad in spurts, but like I mentioned before, against Atlanta, against the Las Vegas Raiders, against the Cincinnati Bengals, Dalton played well.
And we saw it here.
Yeah.
We saw it here. I mean, he can give you a stretched solid play. Now, over the course of a long season, it's going to end up being around below average to 500 ball.
And they traded Deontay Johnson, so they're down their top receiver.
I think, to a man, I bet they're happy that Dalton's not starting. I don't bet. I guarantee you they're very happy because Dalton is capable of making enough plays to at least keep it relevant. I don't think Bryce Young is capable. So, anyway, speaking of quarterbacks, it's not just Derek Carr being back that certainly is newsworthy. There's another piece of information that we saw or that we found out today that's also quite noteworthy.
Yeah, we talked about the conversation that the media had with Derek Carr today. Dennis Allen also talked for about 20 minutes. And in the midst of his press conference today, he mentioned that despite Carr being expected to start, QB2, the backup, would not be Spencer Rattler. It would be Jake Haener. So Jake Haener, the backup, because we saw him come in for Carr before Carr got injured. Jake Haener was the backup now after the Carr injury. But when Carr actually got injured, it was Rattler playing. So what did you make of that?
Well, first off, we get 20 minutes to go view practice. And you can't see much. You get to see them video-wise. You can only see the stretching portion, and then the video guys, they've got to go. And there's a few things you can see when they're going through routes on air, individual stuff. And if you're there long enough, you can see a pattern to certain things. And when I saw today, first thing you look at is obviously Derek Carr. And then the next thing I noticed, just in routes on air, it certainly looked like the quarterback throwing the ball after Carr the most was Jake Haener. So if I didn't know any better, it sure looked like Jake Haener might be the number 2 this week. And then sure enough, DA was asked about it after practice in his press conference, and I don't know why he said, yeah, that's probably the direction we're going to go with Haener as the number 2 quarterback. And obviously this sparks a little bit of confusion because it's where do you really stand with Rattler and Haener? And I guess the thing you have to settle is, did Rattler get demoted? Or are they just going back to the flow or the process or the hierarchy or the depth chart that they had when Carr played the first 5 weeks of the season? If that's the case, and it's just a simple matter of Carr's back, Haener's the 2, Rattler's the 3. If that's the case, then it's pretty clear to me that they see Jake Haener as a relief pitcher, as the relief pitcher of the group. And they see Carr as the starter and then Rattler as a potential starter, if that is indeed the case. If it's a depth chart thing, then frankly, I think Rattler lost some confidence. Or the coaches lost a little confidence in Rattler, and now they think Haener is the guy that gives them the best chance to win if Carr goes down. It's hard to make heads or tails of this because it's been mixed messaging the whole time. I mean, you ask him, with the way Rattler finished preseason, and you ask him about the development and QB reps and doing this and doing that, and you have an idea. Okay, well, first 5 weeks of the season, Haener was the backup, and Rattler wasn't even active. He was the emergency guy. So you figure, well, Haener at this point in time, one out. He's the number 2. Maybe with a little seasoning, Rattler could be the number 2 or the next guy up. Maybe next year, whatever the case may be. But the second Carr went down, Rattler was up, and I can understand why you would be confused, why we were confused. In fact, Dennis Allen was even asked about it. I'm not sure he gave a real cohesive answer. It was that's just gives us the best chance this week or something like that. I got to go back and actually look at the words that he used. But there's a lot of mixed messaging because I'm not sure they are completely set on how they want to view those two guys. And they're two young guys, and they don't want to necessarily, diminish the confidence of either one, but you gotta have a depth chart. You gotta have a plan in place for these guys. The only way we would truly know, and this is something they don't want to deal with ever, is if Carr goes down again, and then who's the guy then? Because if it were me and Carr went down again, hopefully it doesn't happen. Knock on that. I'm with you. I'm ready for the Haener train. I'm ready for them to turn to Haener because I think Rattler got his opportunity, and if that situation presented itself, then I think we go to Haener. But we won't know for sure unless he got injured again. No one wants that.
Right. It's definitely confusing because when Rattler got the job 3 weeks ago, what we were told was we feel like Spencer Rattler gives us the best chance to win. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if Spencer Rattler gives you the best chance to win, shouldn't he be the guy behind Carr?
Right.
Even after he lost to Tampa. Again, Dennis Allen, we feel like he gives us the best chance to win. Mm-hmm. After the Denver game that they lost, Dennis Allen, once again, we're going to roll with whoever gives us the best chance to win. That's what he kept saying, and he kept sending Rattler out there to start games. And then all of a sudden, Spencer Rattler is now back to QB3. Mm-hmm. Does that mean he'll be inactive on game day like he was the first few weeks of the season as the emergency third quarterback? Yeah. If this is the guy that, quote unquote, gave you the best chance to win the last few weeks, it seems like a demotion for sure because, you would think that if this is the guy who you chose to start when Derek went down, this is the guy who would be QB2 on the roster. But Spencer Rattler did get benched against the Chargers. Jake Haener did come in against the Chargers. And again, we're knocking on wood because we want Derek Carr to be healthy. We want to see him play all 9 of these games. But if Carr got injured again, I don't even know if the fan base would want to see Rattler again after the last 3 games at this point.
Well, he's still got a
he's got some fans now. We read the comments.
They let me know for sure. They let me know who their guy is, and I want to be there with you guys. I really do. I got to tell the truth. I can't be there right now. Someday I will be, but I can't be there right now.
What I would have wanted to see is, and I think this could have made a big difference in the Chargers game. I think Haener should have started the Chargers game, and I think it would have been interesting to see what Haener would have looked like with a full week practicing and getting reps with the ones, because that's what Spencer Rattler has gotten over the last 3 weeks. He's gotten 95% of the reps with the first team, as every starting quarterback does in the NFL. If Jake Haener had been getting those reps and he comes into the Chargers game, would they have been better? We can only dream, imagine, fantasize, but it would have been interesting to see.
It's almost like it's an easy way for them to play both sides.
Yeah.
Because if you're explaining it to Rattler, it's, well, we're just going to go back to what we had with Derek. Same deal, same drill. But if you're explaining it to Haener, well, you played better, so now you're the two. It's almost like a way that you could possibly play both sides of the coin there. Yeah. But again, hopefully that's a situation they never have to confront, because I think if it got to that point and you're talking about a season that's really going to limp to the finish line at that point. Real quick, I want to, how much time we got? About 2 minutes. The Wednesday report. Lattimore did not practice, hamstring. Tyrann Mathieu had an illness, did not practice. Bub Means, ankle, did not practice. Kendre Miller didn't practice. Rico Payton did not practice. Cedric Wilson Jr. did not practice. Carr officially limited. Juwan Johnson limited. Kamara limited. Kool-Aid limited. Saldiveri limited. And then Lemieux and Sewell back to full. So they've been designated to return. So you're getting some depth in certain spots. So, and at some point, Will Harris will come back off of IR. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you're getting a couple guys off. I had totally forgot about a couple of these guys. Like I completely forgot about Shane Lemieux. I really did. So that's just the journey you take in the health department in the NFL. You might get some guys back and it could help. You're going to lose some guys. Every week you're going to lose someone, but hopefully you can gain some guys back as well. So that's just where they stand from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, and you definitely hope to get Marshawn Lattimore back. I mean, he's still the best corner on this team. You're down Paulson Adebo for an extended period of time. So the two names that stuck out to me on that list were, assuming that Carr and AK can play, it was Kool-Aid McKinstry and Marshawn Lattimore, who I believe both have hamstring injuries. Another name that stuck out, Kendre Miller. I was very excited to see Kendre Miller return and finally, spell some of that, quantity of touches that was on Alvin Kamara, and it lasted all of a week and a half because Kendre Miller is back on the injured report, and who knows if or when we will see him on the field again.
And look, they signed Jacob Caboti to the practice squad today, so that tells you all you need to know. They need some guys to do some practice reps, so who knows if he gets called up on the game day roster, the UL Lafayette. Jacob Caboti, the running back who closed out the preseason quite well, was on the practice squad, was off, now he's back on. So
got a couple final word questions about Jacob Caboti.
Yeah. So Jacob Caboti, we'll see if he's able to make his way onto the field. So a good Wednesday. The new work week is here for the Saints. So they inch closer and closer to Saints versus Panthers in Carolina. You better win. You better win this game. You better win on Sunday.
Bottom.
Yeah. So, all right. We're going to get out of here. So for Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.